Hey everybody, my name is Chase Pipes and you're watching Chasing History, brought to you by the Smoky Mountain Relic Room and the American Digger magazine. And we are in Canada with our buddy Johnny Isa at the Chlorite Ammolite mine. You can see behind us, we've got heavy equipment going, heavy machinery. You can see behind us the open pit mine that's back there. We're here to learn about Ammolite, this stuff that came straight out of the ground. Johnny, tell us a little bit about what you've got going on here.
So we have an open pit mine on the banks of the St. Mary's River, and we are mining for the gem ammolite material. We're going down about 10 meters from the surface, and we have an open pit mine. We're backfilling as we go, and we are looking for that gem material right there. Every so often, we do find a whole ammonite fossil. We keep those fossils intact, because about 90% of what we find are broken pieces or fragments, and that's what we use to cut the gemstones.
See, Ammolite isn't just a fossil, it's a gem, and it is the most incredible combination of the two you will ever see. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go up the hill, and we're gonna talk about this that literally came out of the ground 5 minutes ago. This is an ammonite, and you can see the Ammolite gem material on top of it. This is gonna be an awesome episode, and you're gonna wanna stick with us because we're going down in the hole. We're gonna learn the entire process. It is gonna be amazing. So stick with us, and let's head up the hill, and we'll show you guys what this is all about. Ready, Johnny?
Let's go.
Let's do it. So Johnny, what actually is an ammonite? What is this a fossilized animal? Where did it live? What's going on?
So ammonites are a sea creature. They're a fossil that we find. They are a cephalopod, so they're related to a squid or a nautilus or even an octopus.
Okay.
And their fossils are found on every single continent of the world, including Antarctica.
Okay.
But they died out when the dinosaurs did, back when the meteor hit the Earth 65 million years ago, and we don't find their fossils in any of the recent times.
Okay, so when we say the word ammolite, we're talking about just the membrane, just the shell of this sea creature itself, correct?
You bet. Yeah. So ammolite comes from the Greek word, the L in ammolite comes from lith, which means stone.
Okay.
So ammolite is literally the stone of the ammonite.
Oh, okay.
So ammolite refers to the gemstone.
Okay, so why are they found here? I mean, I don't see any ocean here. So how did these sea creatures get here in the middle of Alberta?
Well, this is ancient marine sediment. So that means this is the bottom of an ancient sea. Back in the Cretaceous times, North America was divided into two land masses, and there was the Pierre Seaway running through the middle of North America. Over time, that seaway slowly receded, and you have the remnants of that seaway, which is the Gulf of Mexico in the south and the Hudson's Bay in northern Canada.
What? So wait a minute. So Hudson's Bay and the Gulf of Mexico are the ancient remnants of this inland seaway that cut through the middle of North America.
You bet. They were once connected.
Dude, that's so cool.
And all of North America, the middle section of it was underground.
Okay, and had these sea creatures floating and living and doing their life and dying and falling to the ocean floor and then becoming buried into sediment. And then we've got, continental drift and uplift. And there's no longer a seaway here. Instead, there's a river and grass and the fossil remains of the ammonite.
You bet. So we're mining for the ammonites and the ammolite gem material, but we're finding other things. We're finding mosasaurs, we're finding elasmosaurs, we're finding plesiosaurs.
Oh, wow.
We find some turtle shells, fish remnants, lobsters, crabs, all that marine life that was living in the oceans back then.
So basically, you're getting a snapshot of the entire ecosystem. That when they died, they became fossilized. But the big thing that you're looking for, you're not looking for the mosasaurs and the other fossils. You're looking for just the ammonites.
Yeah,
correct?
We're here just to find the fossil ammonites, the whole fossils, or the gem material, which is the ammonite.
So what makes this so special? Why do you get heavy equipment in order to find this.
So they believe this is a place where the ammonites would come, they would mate, and they would die. So we're finding them in a high concentration here, or a concentration high enough that we can warrant opening up a mine and actually using heavy machinery to find it.
Okay, so these ammonites are, in a sense, so valuable, not only to science, but commercially as well.
You bet.
That it's worth opening up this mine and digging.
Yeah, you bet.
That's crazy. Okay, so we've got these specimens here, and this color is absolutely remarkable. I've never seen this color on any other specimens before, and especially when we pour water on it. I mean, just look at that color. So what is it that's giving it this color? Why don't I see this on other fossils in other places around the world?
Well, what you have here is you have light interference. So this is the many layers of the natural shell, and it's the light reflecting and refracting through those layers.
Okay. So what caused the light to reflect and reflect through those layers? Was it the pressure that was put on it?
On the ammonites? Well, on the ammonites, you have many layers. So if you're looking at this, this is maybe a millimeter thick. So it's extremely thin, like probably a 1/16 of an inch sort of thing. So you probably have hundreds of layers in that 1/16 of an inch.
Oh, wow.
And those layers have been compressed down, and it's light reflecting and refracting through those layers.
Okay.
So like a prism, it breaks up white light into the component colors.
Okay, so you've got these different layers, and the thickness of the layer determines the color because that's the layer that the light is hitting.
Yeah, the light is either being broken up to a greater degree or to less of a degree.
So if we were to polish this down, some of these colors would go away.
You bet.
Because we're getting into other layers.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
So in Ammolite, you should have every color of the spectrum, because it's the natural light that's being broken up into those component colors before it hits your eye.
Gotcha.
So if you think of the rainbow, you have blues on one side and you have reds on the other.
Okay.
Now in Ammolite, those layers kind of stack on the outside. So if we're polishing, if we have blue on the outside, we're polishing, the blue will slowly turn to green.
Okay.
The green will turn to yellow. The yellow will turn to orange. The orange will turn to red. And then the red will turn to black, because you've gone all the way through the Ammolite into the rock underneath.
Gotcha. So like on this specimen, we've got blue right here, and it's a pretty high raised spot. So that means those other layers have worn down, like there was blue on top of this red at one time.
Probably,
it's just worn down to the red layer.
You bet. So Ammolite is graded by the number of colors and the brightness of those colors.
Okay.
So if you have a stone that has a full spectrum, it's going to be a higher grade stone. In Ammolite, the blues and purples are the rarest colors that we find because they're always on the outside.
Ah,
On the outside of the fossil, you could have some oxidation, or you could have a calcium buildup that's going to turn it kind of whitish. You see
Like
this white here at the top?
Yep.
So that's just a calcium buildup, or that's probably oxidation there. So what we have to do to get rid of that white is we have to just go through it. So when you polish through it, most times you lose the blues and purples.
Okay, I gotcha. So this is a specimen piece. What are these pieces down here?
So this piece here, this is a specimen piece because it's kind of bumpy. I don't know if you can see it. It's got all kinds of bumps and grooves, so it's really not suitable for cutting a gemstone. This material here, this is the gem material. Now if you're looking at this, you can see that it has every color of the spectrum. It's really smooth. If you look at it from the side, you can see how smooth it is. This is perfect for cutting a gemstone. Same with this material here. This is a flake material. I just kind of wet it with my hand here. Yeah, perfect. But you can see it has that natural rainbow progression all the way through it. That is a perfect piece for cutting gemstone. This other piece here, this piece we find, now this is a little bit concave, so this would have been the cap piece that came off this ammonite. And you can see it still has great colors, but it's really bumpy, so this wouldn't be suitable for cutting gem material.
Okay.
So we do have different grades of ammolite.
Okay, so there's a lot of work that goes into mining this. I mean, you guys are operating an industrial open pit mine, which is what's behind us.
You bet.
What is that process like? What do we see behind us? Because I see a lot of dirt and a great big hole.
So we're at the very bottom of the Bear Paw Formation. The Bear Paw Formation goes about 8 kilometers to the west of us here, and we're at the very bottom layer. And these are the layers where the best ammolite gemstones come from. So we're mining here. 90% of what we find are broken pieces or fragments, and those are the pieces we can cut into the gem material. But every so often, we'll find a whole ammonite fossil. Now at Corite, we would never destroy a whole ammonite to cut it into gemstones because most of what we find are the broken fragments or pieces anyway. So when we find a whole piece from the mine, a whole ammonite fossil, we prepare it as a fossil.
Okay.
But what we're doing here, we have an open pit mine, and our pay zone, or the area where we're finding the ammonites, is about 3.5 meters thick. So it's about 10 feet. So we're going through it, and we're mining, and you got to remember the ammonites are randomly deposited, so you don't know where you're going to find them. And I like to say we have to move a football field to find a shoebox of ammolite.
Wow.
So we've got to rip through a lot of earth to find these guys.
Wow.
We've found over time that the concentration of ammonites and ammolite that we find and the quality of the specimens that we're finding is much better when we're at the very bottom.
Wow.
So we kind of rip through the top going quick, and once we get to those bottom layers, everything slows down and we're just scraping inch by inch, getting lower. So as we're mining, we're backfilling as we go because we have an open pit mine, and that helps us get through all the material, and we only have to move the earth once.
And then when you're finished mining, you reclaim the land as if you guys had never been there.
Yeah, Canada and Alberta in particular has some of the strictest laws governing mining and mineral resources. So we have to reclaim the land. All the different sediments have to be put back in order. So you have the B, the A, the subsoil, then the topsoil, and then we have to plant natural grasses. Everything has to be contoured in the way that water flows. Mm-hmm. So when we finish, we probably have about 30% more volume than when we started, because we can never pack it as tight as Mother Nature. So what we have to do is we have to contour that the way water flows and put everything back the way it was. Now, when we're done mining this area here, you're going to never know we were ever here.
Wow. Now, how long will it take you to mine? Well, first off, how long have you been mining here, and how much longer do you have left?
So we've been in this particular spot since about 2002. So we've been here almost 20 years mining, and we're pushing across. We do a little bit more than an acre a year, and we're going through those zones, backfilling as we go. So right now we only have one backhoe going, so we have teams of 3. So you have the backhoe operator and you have 2 spotters. And one spotter is looking to see what's left behind when the bucket scrapes. Another one is looking to see what's in the bucket when it dumps, and you have the operator. But the minute you find something, all the machinery stops, and you're on hands and knees, and you're collecting the fossil or the pieces and not using the heavy machinery.
Wow, that is awesome, man. This is such a great operation that you guys have. I mean, this is hardcore. This is serious.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys aren't messing around.
So Ammolite was discovered, and Corite was founded in 1979. In 1981, our founder, Rene van der Velde, circumvented the globe to get Ammolite recognized as a gemstone. So in 1981, the CIBJO, or the Colored Stone Commission for the World, declared Ammolite an official gemstone.
Wow.
In 1983, we started mining with heavy machinery. So we've been mining with heavy machinery now for 40 years.
That's awesome. And that is a heck of a hole you guys have down there. I know you guys are excited as I am. I'm dying to go get in the hole, and I know you guys are dying to go get in the hole. So we're going to go get in the hole, and we're going to take you guys with us. This is going to be epic. Oh yeah, let's go do it. Let's get in the hole.
Awesome.
We're down at the mine site with Evan Kovacs, head of field operations here at Corite. Evan, thank you so much for taking the time to explain to us what you've got going on down here, because this is a giant hole.
It is.
So what is the process of well, we know why to look because this is the area where you find the ammolite, but how do you go about opening up a hole this size?
Yeah, so we start by stripping the topsoil and all the subsoil levels. We pile those off to the side, and then we get down to the Bear Paw Shale and start mining away. And we start recovering ammolite just like this.
And you've got some ammolite that you guys have recovered today?
Yes, correct. Today and last week, yeah.
No joke.
Yeah,
so these are specimens that literally were lost to time in history until just as long as a week ago.
Yes, exactly.
That's epic.
Yeah.
So what do we got here?
Yeah, so we got some nice, beautiful range of specimen here. We got some more what they call the dragon skin or rougher pattern texture. This is what we make hand specimen out of usually.
Okay.
And we also have some more sheet ammolite, which we find in the zone 4, which is kind of what we're after in this area.
Okay.
It produces the nice smooth surfaces that we're after. And that gives rise to all the beautiful gemstone material that we see here as well. So it starts off really gray, and underneath that thin coating of rock, we find the beautiful color of the ammolite. And yeah, it comes in all different sizes, broken pieces, and then of course chunks of the shell and even the entire complete ammonite fossil itself.
So when you're down in the ground and you've got the machine running, I mean, so how do you know that you're about to hit something? You're just literally just waiting for the color to appear?
Partially, but we're also looking for shapes. So the shape of the ammolite itself will give rise in the covering shale.
Okay.
And we can actually spot it sometimes before we even break anything. And that's when we find the completes. Yeah.
Okay, so having eyes on the ground while the machinery is running and having eyes that can that know the rock, that can spot it, is paramount.
That's correct, yes.
That's so cool. How many years of experience does it take to learn how to do this? Because this obviously isn't something somebody can just walk off the street and go do.
Yeah, usually about a year people get really good at, with our training here at the site, people get a really good eye for it, usually within a year. So
okay.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the more experience the better, because
right.
then you can really spot those subtleties in the shape, and that's what we're really looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
This is epic, man. I want to go get in the hole. Can we go? Can we go down into the mine?
You betcha.
All right. I know you guys want to go down in the mine. I want to go. Let's go down in the mine. All right. Let's go.
Let's check it out.
So the machinery stopped. What does that mean? What are these guys down there doing?
Yeah. So they found some ammolite. That's a good sign.
That's exactly what we want to hear.
Exactly.
So they're working on it right now.
Yes. So they're picking up little fragments. If it's a really good case scenario, they found the full fossil, and they're extracting that. But looks like some fragments here on the back end of the machine.
Okay.
So they're just collecting everything they can possibly find.
So what they'll do is the machine will run, it'll take out that higher edge right there. When they hit something, stop the machine, all hands on deck, get as many pieces as possible.
Correct, yes. Yeah. We got a couple active sites in front of the machine and on the back side, and they just find everything they can. Yeah.
Cool, let's go see what they found.
You betcha.
Let's go. So as we were walking down to the mine, we picked up this piece and looked. So this is an ammonite.
Yes.
So what's going on here? Why is this white, has no color? What's going on?
Yeah, so this is a chunk of an ammonite that had the color. You can still see some the remaining little sections of color.
Go ahead and pour some water on
there.
there.
You bet.
Okay.
So you can still see some there, but it's being oxidized by exposure to the air, the water, and the sunlight as it gets really close to the surface. And it starts to destroy this beautiful color that's preserved from 70 million years ago.
So the UV will come down and will attack, basically, for lack of a better word, and destroy this fossil as it goes.
Yeah, just the natural exposure will start destroying that color.
And see, that's the whole point and purpose of collecting fossils, is because Mother Nature's brutal. Mother Nature is, all it wants to do is to make mountains and make it flat, and to destroy things, to make rocks into sand, and it's doing the exact same thing to fossils. That process, the process of erosion, is out there, and it's doing its thing every single day. And if these fossils aren't collected, they're going to turn out like this and just be naturally destroyed by the natural elements. And this is a perfect example of that. That's crazy. That's really cool. All right, now let's go down into the hole.
So beneath our feet here is the Bear Paw Shale, and it's, as you can see, it's pretty uniform. So we're scraping through bit by bit, and it's not even rock. It's more like mud that's been hardened. and you can break it and flake it into little bits. So what Dylan and Murph and the team mining here are looking for, they're looking for inconsistencies in that smooth shale. So the ammonites are a different density than the rock around it. So the rock will cleave or break right where there's an ammonite. So that's why a lot of times when you see a video maybe Corite put online where they're finding an ammonite, it looks like the ammonite is just laying there right on the surface. And that's how it is most of the time, because the rock above it will cleave right off and you'll expose the ammonite. Then they just have to dig around, stabilize it. They'll pedestal that ammonite and they'll take it out and do the flip.
So that's really your big indicator is because the ammonite itself has a different density, that the natural rock surrounding it is going to cleave off of it, exposing your specimen.
You bet. Yeah.
That's cool.
And the rock here, like I say, it's not even rock. It's mud that's hardened, and it's so uniform and flat. So they're just looking for little inconsistencies.
That's awesome. Cool. So we've got the equipment running on idle. Our guy's down there, he's got something flagged down, so we found something, right?
That's correct.
So right as we were hanging out, that's how quick this is, and this is why they've got to have guys down there spotting, is because this stuff comes up just, instantly, and you've got to have eyes on it immediately. So we're going to go down and take you with us and see what this stuff looks like straight in the ground. Let's go.
Sounds good.
So what'd you find?
Got some gemstone here.
That's awesome! What?
Just in this crack here, you bet.
So how were you able to spot that? Because I see it, but I can barely see it. So how are you able to spot that?
I saw a little bit of color just right here.
Yeah.
A little bit of flake that broke off, kind of broke off from it, and just dug around, and sure enough, there it is.
So you just zoom in on it, and these are some of the specimens that you've picked up from this spot?
Right, yeah.
Wow. Look at this, guys. This is awesome. And to see how thin this is all what you're looking for, is this little thin layer right here. That is what this whole process is all about. And you have got to have hawk eyes to find something in the ground like this.
Do we just want to maybe stabilize it now and then mark it and get it when we do the next table here?
Yeah, I think we could do that.
That way we'll save more of the specimen and we
Good
might
idea.
get it all out.
Good idea.
It could be a good one.
This is awesome. This is so cool. Live, literally live, we got to see one being found. How awesome is that? Ah! That's so cool. All right, we got a lot more to show you. We're here at the Royal Terrell Museum with Dr. Donald Henderson. Dr. Henderson, thank you so much for letting us come out and ask you some questions about ammonites. You're the curator of dinosaurs here at the Royal Terrell Museum, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do?
Okay, I am paid to go and look for dinosaurs, study dinosaurs, write about them, talk to the public, talk to the media about them. But I also do other stuff. Like I'm really interested in marine reptiles as well, like the plesiosaurs, mosasaurs, those sorts of things.
Oh, that's cool. So ammonites are kind of an interest for you as well because it falls within that category.
If I couldn't do fossil reptiles, I would do ammonites.
Really? So what is so fascinating about ammonites that draws you to them to study?
There was tens of thousands of different kinds. They survived 3 mass extinctions, but got clobbered at the one that finished off the dinosaurs. And after each of those mass extinctions, those older ones, they bounced back with thousands of species, filled all these niches.
So that's a really interesting point that I'd like to discuss further. Why did they not, they made it through 2 mass extinctions, but the third one took them out. Why couldn't they make it past that 3rd mass extinction? What was so different about it that couldn't allow them to survive?
Okay, the one that finished them off was the asteroid impact, and that was totally global. It affected the land and it really affected the oceans. The acid rain, darkness would have changed ocean chemistry, the biology of the oceans, and these guys were feeding at the top of the fish chain. And with marine food webs collapsed, these things went extinct.
Did other species, other animals also go extinct that would have been in that range?
Yeah, all the top predators in the Cretaceous Seas died at the end of the Cretaceous. So plesiosaurs, the mosasaurs, the ammonites, some other aquatic reptiles, a lot of different kinds of fishes, a lot of types of plankton as well.
Okay.
I think the acid rain, because you think that when that asteroid came in, it was so hot, it cooked the atmosphere and produced an awful lot of nitric acid, which changed the ocean chemistry. Little tiny shelled creatures could not form their little shells. They couldn't grow and reproduce properly. And so if the base of the food web is cut out, all the bigger animals all the way up perish.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. So tell us about ammonites. What exactly are these animals? How did they live? What did they eat? What animals, came out to eat them? What animals did they eat? What are these amazing creatures?
So ammonites are mollusks. So they're related to clams and snails and squid and octopus. They're most closely related to the octopus and squid. And mollusks all have an organ called a mantle, which produces a shell. Octopi, you don't see the shell in the squid, but they do have that mantle. But other coiled forms like these ammonites, they all produce a shell. And they have a very distinctive way of growing. They grow as a spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, what else can I say? They're all carnivorous.
That's cool.
Yeah. They've also got these tentacles. So similar tentacles to like squid, with probably little suckers and little hooklets, so they could grab and manipulate prey. Inside, they've also got a beak. And they grab the prey, pull it in, hold it, and bite off chunks. Probably one of them still alive. Very nasty.
Wow. Yeah.
They had really good vision. They have very large eyes. They must be very visually oriented animals. And we can see on other types of ammonites patterns in the shell. So I think they would have lived in the photic zone, the lit ocean zone of the ocean. So
when you say photic, you mean visible light?
Or the sunlight can penetrate down to still a reasonable depth.
Okay.
And so you can see.
Gotcha.
And so they were very visual predators. And they probably saw and recognized each other. If you've seen cuttlefish, they're kind of like squashed down mollusk or cephalopod. And they use all these bright pulsing colors to signal to each other. They can change color in a snap, and they got patterns. And I think that's a really good example of how visual these creatures were.
Do you think that ammonites had that ability?
I don't think they were changing color because they've got the hard shell. They had a fixed pattern, but they weren't doing the changing colors.
Gotcha.
Because the cuttlefish, it's the soft skin and the pigment cells in the skin. But I'm sure their tentacles had patterns and color on them.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have been using sight.
So let's talk about the shell for a second, because it's so amazing that as this animal grows, it makes the shell larger and larger as it grows. How does that work? I mean, it's not like a horseshoe crab where it goes in and picks up a shell when it needs to be bigger. It's actually growing that shell as the animal grows?
Yeah, it starts off as a little tiny nubbin, and it grows in a spiral. Different types of ammonites have different shaped shells. And way back in I can't remember, the 60s or 70s, David Rupp developed a mathematical model of how the shell grows. He looked at how fast does it add going round? How does the shape of the opening change? How does its size change? And ammonites sort of fall into a series of patterns or clusters. They'll grow a certain way, and another group will grow a certain other way.
That's cool.
And the shells, so the animal lives in the last chamber. And as it grows, it pulls itself forward and puts a wall in behind to form a new chamber behind it.
A wall of what?
The same shell material.
So how is it producing that shell material?
It's coming from this organ called the mantle,
Okay.
a way to secrete that mineral shell.
Okay, so it's secreting that mineral chamber. Is it leaving gas or anything in
Yes,
that?
it is.
Okay.
So each chamber is it's a mix of a gas and a liquid. And running through the center is a tube called the siphuncle. And there's other soft tissue inside that siphuncle. And under conscious control, the ammonites can control how much gas and how much liquid is in each chamber.
What? That is so cool. You're kidding.
So they can very precisely control their buoyancy and their depth in the water column. Because if they had to fight buoyancy all the time,
Yeah.
it'd be just too tiring. It's like a submarine, ballast tanks, and they purge the tanks, so they flood them.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same system.
That's such a fascinating trait. Does anything like that still exist?
Yes, the living nautilus.
Has that same thing.
Yeah. that's the funny thing about the extinction as well. So nautilus and ammonites appear way back in the Paleozoic. The nautiloids survived the same extinctions, or that they weren't affected by the same extinctions that the ammonites were, not as badly. But the nautiloids passed that end Cretaceous extinction.
Why do you think they did and ammonites didn't?
Because the nautiloids, we've only got 2 living species today. They're very close related. They're in the Indian Ocean. And at night, during the day, they stay down really deep where it's cold and dark. And at night, they come up to feed. And then before it gets bright, they go back down again. So there may have been something in this nautiloid behavior, that staying deep when things weren't good allowed them to survive.
Oh, that's such an interesting thought. That's cool.
That's total speculation.
No, but
it's a reasonable idea.
Yeah, it's a reasonable idea. And I mean, that's how you progress forward, is through speculation. You got to have an idea before you can test, before you have something to test out.
You put up an idea and let other people try and kick it down.
Yeah, yeah. That's fascinating. Now, what animals within the ocean were eating ammonites? Surely they had to have, things that preyed upon them.
Yeah, there's different kinds of ammonites. Some lived on the sea bottom.
Okay.
And were clearly clunky, chunky, heavy animals that weren't swimming. Others are very elongate bodies. The baculites, we get several different kinds here. And others, like these kinds, are like a discus when you look at them. They must have just been zipping through the water. And I suspect ammonites, depending on your size, you could eat pretty much anything that was smaller than you. I wouldn't be surprised if other ammonites were eating, one kind of ammonite was eating another kind.
Oh, that's cool.
I think they would probably, certainly the bottom type ones, like octopus today, they will feel around the seabed, grab little creatures, maybe scavenge a carcass that's fallen down. And I can't remember, there might be some evidence for some stomach content in ammonite or some residue inside the shell. I'm not sure though. But we do know that an ammonite is a nice chunk of flesh. And if you can crack into that shell, you can get a nice meal.
Yeah.
And certainly in this province, we've got lots of examples of bitten ammonites.
That's cool. So you've got shells with bite marks in it.
Like you can see it right on here.
Oh, that's so cool. Yes.
You can see these circular depressions.
Yes.
And they're in, these are tooth impressions from a mosasaur, and they're in a row. And a lot of them, if you look on the other side, you've got the bite marks from the lower jaw and the upper jaw.
Oh, that's so cool.
What I think they were doing, I think they would come up from below, the mosasaur, a few quick bites, puncture all these flotation chambers, and weaken the shell. So the ammonite can't escape. And I know my own lizards, when they're eating like a snail shell or something, they like to shake feed. So you've weakened the shell, hold it, give it a good shake, out plops the nice soft fleshy part, and then you ditch the shell, go grab that.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I know my own lizards, there was one kind I had like to eat snails. And before they would swallow the snail, they would use their jaws and crunch it up, use their tongue. They manipulated the shell, turned it around in their mouth, crunch, 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 and get the soft part out.
Oh, that's cool. So some of the mosasaurs, if you look at their teeth, they look like they're designed as punching teeth or hammering teeth. Do you think that could be an adaptation to specifically hunt for ammonites?
I don't think, there was probably only certain kinds of mosasaurs were eating ammonites.
Okay.
I think the really big ones, this is an awful lot of work for a tiny little snack.
Yeah.
You like go after something bigger. But I'm sure clearly some kinds of mosasaurs were eating these. And there's some other kinds of mosasaurs that don't have the conical teeth. They've got really low dome-shaped teeth. Some people thought they might have been eating clams, which need a bit more crunching power.
Right.
But I think some of the ones, the mosasaurs with the conical pointed teeth, yeah, they were going after.
That's cool. Okay, so tell us about ammonites, because they're really fascinating, especially the ones that are found here, because the ones that are found here are completely unique to any other ammonites that are found anywhere else in the world, specifically because of the color that they are. The colors are absolutely radiant and beautiful, and why does that happen here and not other places around the world?
Okay, we get ammonites from hundreds of millions of years, and most of them are normal fossil ammonite colors. But in one rock formation, we get these gem quality ones. It's called the Bear Paw Formation. It records the time when there was a shallow sea line covering up the western half of North America. It's unique. It's an inland sea. It hasn't got ocean crust below. It's got continental crust.
Okay.
And it's a fine black gray shale. And must have been a good place to be an ammonite because we get lots of them. And when they died, they had a really good chance of becoming a fossil and staying buried for a long time. But the whole time after the extinction of the ammonites in 66 million years, we've had mountain building coming from the west. So little microcontinents all the way from Alaska to Mexico are bumping up and crunching the continent, stacking up the rocks, and then the rocks subside because of the weight.
Okay.
And when they subside, they carry the Bear Paw Formation down to depth.
And the ammonites down to depth
Ammonite
with it.
with them. So you've got this heating and higher pressure, and it's like a form of slow cooker, and the shell becomes chemically altered.
That's so cool. So the shell will become chemically altered due to the pressure and the depth
Yeah.
in it. Would a good analogy be like when you carry or when pressure is put on a piece of carbon like coal and it changes into a diamond? Is that kind of the same thing
Yes,
that's
but
going
nowhere
on?
near as extreme.
Okay.
These things maybe only being down a couple of kilometers.
Okay.
Not to the bottom of the Earth's crust.
Okay.
Which is like, 60 to 100 kilometers down.
Right. Yeah.
No. So, and when I say chemical change, it's not changing atoms. You're just changing the arrangement of the atoms.
Okay. That's so crazy that much pressure can change the arrangement of atoms.
Well, it's a well-established field in geology. It's called metamorphic geology. All rocks, if they don't stay at the temperature and pressure they originally formed at, they will change chemically.
Okay.
So this is just part of metamorphism, and so the geology people got it all worked out.
Right.
But it's really unique with this former living material.
Yeah.
Has been it wasn't living. It was produced by living material.
Right. Yes.
And the layers have been compressed and changed structurally. Now, when the light shines on them, the light has different depths of penetration, different wavelengths.
Right.
And the lights are reflecting off at different levels, and you get what's called constructive and destructive interference with light. The same way you see like a shimmer of oil on a pool of water, it's a similar sort of thing. You get different wavelengths of light are adding and subtracting from each other, and it gives them these different colors.
That's such a fascinating thing that these shells have been changed to the point that when they are exposed to sunlight, as the light comes down into it and hits the different layer of shells, it shows different colors of the color spectrum. And otherwise, if it wasn't for that heat and pressure, that wouldn't happen.
Correct.
That is so mind-blowing. Are there any other fossils on the planet that have that same trait?
I think I've heard of one other example of a similar thing, but nothing like what we have.
Nothing like what you guys have here. That is incredible. That's so
And it's so
fascinating.
unique that I think it's the Gemological Institute have recognized that this this pressure temperature alterated shell is a unique mineral, and the trade name is for Ammolite.
Right, that's the gem name for it.
That's the gem name for this physically altered shell material.
Okay. Now, one thing that's really interesting is, and when we were talking with Johnny Isa at Corite, is that they find larger concentrations of ammonites in specific areas as opposed to other areas within a small area. Why is that? Why would there be more found here than here? Is there something going on during the life of the ammonite that caused them to group in certain places as opposed to others?
There's probably two explanations going on. You got to think the bear paw is, hundreds of meters thick.
Mm-hmm.
You're recording
Millions.
hundreds of thousands, millions of years.
Right.
And the currents will change. The environment will change. The water temperature will change. The flow of rivers coming in from the mountains will change. So the environment's going to be shifting and changing slightly over that huge amount of time. Like if you were here 15,000 years ago, we'd be under several kilometers of ice because of the ice age. And that's just 15,000 years ago.
Right.
So there's been huge changes. The other thing is that modern squid and octopus, when they reproduce, they die afterwards.
Oh,
I
okay.
often get these mass death assemblages of dead, spent adults. And a lot of people think that ammonites would have been doing the same reproductive strategy. You don't live very long, you produce a whole bunch of young, and then you die. Like salmon.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they spawn once and die.
I gotcha.
So
Go ahead.
So the fancy word for that is semoparous, if you only breed once and die. If you keep repeatedly every year, you're called iteroparis.
Okay.
Just a bit of techie trivia.
That's cool. So what's fascinating is that there's so much mining going on at Quarite where they're finding a lot of specimens. How is their operation there helping you better understand ammonites in the greater scientific world?
Most of these ammonites the ammonites and the other organisms they find, we would never know about them. Because when the bear paw weathers at the surface, it turns into brown gray powder, and the fossils quickly break up. A big problem here is freeze thaw. We have extreme temperatures like in the winter and spring, where you can go from, minus 40 at night to maybe plus 10 centigrade.
Right. Yeah.
Well, minus 40 is minus 40 at
Right.
any kind of scale. Anyway, we have really extreme winters here. And freeze thaw, thermal expansion contraction,
Right.
just smashes up shell. And if you get a bit of water in there, it's even worse.
Right.
So any shells, any bones, they quickly turn to dust at the surface. But here with the Quarite mines, they're digging fresh. And they've also got people watching every bucket, with the excavator.
Right.
So we have a really good chance of seeing stuff.
So because of that operation, it's allowing you to see better material. It's allowing you to have generally first access to specimens. And so it's really widening your knowledge of what life was like during that period.
Yeah, obviously we get the ammonites, different
Right.
kinds. We get the marine reptiles like the mosasaurs, and we got a plesiosaur. We've had 3 dinosaurs from the Quarite area that
That's
washed in.
so cool.
Land animals that washed out to sea.
Yeah.
We've had turtles, we've got fishes, we've got all sorts of crustaceans, like these little lobster sort of things, other types of clams and stuff. We haven't got any seaweed, which is really suspicious. And also, you would think with this really fine-grained mud, we would get skin and scale impressions, like in Kansas chalk.
Right.
Same age, they get nice skin impressions of their mosasaurs. We've never seen any skin.
Huh. Why do you think that is?
No idea. Unless the bacteria in the seabed, maybe they're really good at digesting that.
So, having access to all of these finds, since the opening of the Quarite mine, how far has the knowledge progressed? What things did you find out just because of that mining operation and access to those fossils?
I think we've learned about the diversity of mosasaurs we have.
Okay.
We also got that absolutely awesome long-necked plesiosaur albertonectes, and we've had the turtles. Yeah, it's just opened our eyes to stuff that, and we might get the occasional fish scale or a little tooth. One, it's all by itself. You can't do much. But with the Quarite stuff and digging fresh holes, you get partial or whole animals. Much better story.
Yeah. So what kind of a relationship does the museum here have with Quarite? Explain that dynamic.
Yeah, I like to think that they call us when they find something other than an ammonite. That they're pretty excited about what they find.
Yeah.
And so but from the time we get a call, we can be on the ground all ready to go to collect it within about 48 hours.
That's so cool. It seems like such a great win-win. A win for you guys because you're getting the pick of any specimen that you want, that you can study, that we can learn from, and a win for Quarite and for the public who want to take some of these pieces home and enjoy it and appreciate it themselves, whether in a jewelry form or in a specimen form.
A nice feature is that their pit is so big that when we're there for a week or two collecting some large animal, they can go off the other corner. So they're not losing money and time when we're there. And in fact, when we got that in 2007, when we got that big long-necked elasmosaur, albertonectes, we called it Albertonectes van der Veldi. And the last name van der Veldi refers to René van der Velde, who was the founder of Quarite. And we thought that was a nice touch to recognize his contribution, because he wasn't just a businessman. He was also appreciated the fossils and the science as well.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you before we let you go. And first, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything that you want to tell our audience out there, or anything you would like for them to know?
We haven't found everything.
Okay.
Like that, finding that big plesiosaur, that was a total huge surprise. They've been digging for decades and no one had ever seen it before. And I think there's always still lots of great surprises waiting to come out of the ground.
So see, that's a really important thing is you know, science continues. It never ends because we're constantly discovering and learning new things. And that's the key. That's the excitement behind it. I'm sure a lot of you never knew that these ammonites had this incredible color to it. That's because it comes from one place on Earth. And it just shows the importance of getting out there and making discoveries. And that's something that you guys can get out and do. You can help. If you find something incredible, contact your local museum or your local university, and they can help get in there and study and understand it. So this is a way that you can become involved and that you can join in the discovery, because it's never finished. There's so much still out there to discover. It's incredible. And we really appreciate your contributions to furthering our understanding of the natural world and of ammonites.
Oh, you're welcome.
So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
I really appreciate it. Now we're going to head back to the mine and show you guys some cool stuff. So what's the next step when you get it out of the mine? Where does it go?
So we got the farmhouse just a few kilometers from here. So all the pieces that we find during the day go to the farmhouse. Evan does all the stabilization, all the sorting, all the raw slabbing, and then that all goes up to Calgary to our production facility.
Nice. Can we go see the farmhouse?
You bet.
Let's do it. Let's go see the next step in this process. So guys, this is the next step of the process. You guys get it out of the mine, and as soon as it comes out of the pit, it comes here. Where are we?
So we're at the original Cormos homestead, and Cormos is actually where the name Corite came from. So we're in a shop in the back here behind the house, and this is where Evan and his team bring their finds every day. So the finds come here, the whole ammonites get laid out like you see here, and then behind us here, these are the stabilization shelves. So all the rough gets put on these shelves, we put glue on them, they sit for 24 hours overnight and stabilize the piece so it's not going to flake off. Then Evan will grade it, and he's got different barrels here for all the different grades of rough. And you can see some of the pieces of rough here. We're stabilizing them. Still, there's a little bit of dirt on top. That's going to protect them, and that's going to let the gem cutters start from scratch.
Okay.
This is their arena where they're cutting the gemstones.
So these pieces were unstabilized. These are the ones with the stabilization glue on them.
So you can see it's a little bit shiny, so it's a little bit harder for the gem cutters to get in there, but it's going to survive that trip up to Calgary. So Calgary's about 2 hours north of us here in Lethbridge, and that's where our production facility is. So this stuff has to make it all the way in the back of the truck without falling or turning into rubble.
And so this is an incredibly important part of the process, because you've got to get it out of the mine, and you've got to make it where it can survive the trip up to where it can be cut. And so that takes a skill set. And you also do sorting down here with the pieces that you find?
That's correct, yeah. So all sorted into the different grades and the different product lines that we produce at Corite. So we'll turn it into hand specimen, jewelry, like some of the pieces you see here, natural stones in their loose form. It can also be turned into jewelry. And and then of course the ammonites themselves.
Right. So all the bins that we've got around there, your different sorting groups.
That's correct. We don't waste a shred. Everything is accounted for, even the dust. If you look over here, we've got sifting trays over here, and we keep all the flake and everything. So all this material is kept. We don't waste a thing. There's always some sort of job that you can use.
Kidding, you're really doing something with the dust?
The dust here, look at that.
Awesome.
We collect it.
Collect it.
Look at that.
There's a company out of Israel that makes skincare products out of this.
You're
Just like you
kidding.
use the mud from the Dead Sea,
Yeah.
they use the powders here and they make cosmetics from it.
Ammonite rich. Oh man, I feel great now. That's awesome. Oh, that's so cool.
So I just want to show you these. You might want to zoom in here. These are a couple of the whole ammonites. So these are ones that came out of the mine. So they've been stabilized with glue on here, but you can still see all the color underneath. So these are stabilized and ready to go up to Calgary. And in Calgary at our production facility, that's where we're going to chip off all this rock, do all the polishing, and make these things beautiful.
So the whole point of this facility here is just to stabilize it, to lock it down, so that it can go to the preppers who will prepare it and make it museum presentable, museum quality.
You bet.
This is a really neat piece right here. What's fascinating about this piece is it's got one of the chambers inflated. Is that correct?
So you can see just how thin these are. So this ammonite here has been compressed down. It's paper thin.
So it was an ammonite, a shell floating like this. It died, gets laid down, and so much pressure gets put on it that it squished it down to this paper thin layer.
So
is that not epic?
This would be perfect gemstone material. This is naturally stabilized. So this is perfectly flat. Nobody can stabilize ammolite like Mother Nature, but we would never cut up a whole fossil to make jewelry because we have enough of the pieces. The unique thing about this, if you look at this specimen, this one chamber here is actually inflated, whereas the rest of it has been compressed down. So this one chamber was compromised in some way. So dirt was able to get inside this one chamber, and when the weight of the world was on top, it maintained its shape. Whereas all these other chambers, they just got compressed flat.
What could have caused that? Now that kind of compromise would have happened during the life of the animal, correct?
Or just after death.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would have caused something like that?
So,
maybe an attack from another critter?
You bet. So we're finding other creatures in our mine. As I mentioned earlier, there's a whole marine life there. So in about 10% of the ammonites we find holes on them.
Really?
And funny enough, these holes line up. And there's a couple theories about where these holes come from, but the one that really works for me is that they were bitten by a marine reptile.
That's...
So a mosasaur or an elasmosaur or plesiosaur used to hunt these guys.
Yeah.
And they would bite them, and that would create a hole in the fossil. So when it was buried, the sediment was able to get into that one chamber and not any of the others.
That's just incredible. And look how paper thin this is, guys. I'm going to be very careful. I just want to show you. See how paper thin this is? That is compression. That is literally, as you put it, the weight of the world, 6 miles of ice and land and, all that on that to compress this fossil down to paper thin. And like what we were looking at in the mine, it was just this one little layer, that one of the guys found down there. And it's this, because it's so compressed flat. And it's incredible how those guys can spot that teeny tiny thin layer out of all that rock and rubble.
And being in the pit is not a fun job.
Yeah.
When it is 100 degrees out, it's 120 in the pit.
Wow.
Because all that sun is reflecting. And when it's minus 40, it's minus 50 in the pit because it's so cold down there and it's so windy down here in Lethbridge. It's not a fun job.
Wow. So after this, then it's off to the prep labs to be
You bet.
prepped up.
But we have a couple extra steps we have to do with the whole ammonite fossils.
Okay.
So when we find these ammonite fossils, they still belong to the province of Alberta.
Okay.
They don't belong to Corite. Now, Canada has some of the strictest laws governing fossils, governing mining. I touched on that earlier. But these still belong to the province of Alberta. So these need to be numbered, registered with the government, and they need to be disposed from the government. So we number each and every whole fossil that we find. We take photos of it. We send it to the provincial examiner. They look at each and every fossil that we find. If they find one or deem one scientifically important or an example of some sort of preservation that is not already represented in the provincial collection, they take those ammonites.
That's awesome.
And then if it's something that I wouldn't say is commonplace, but something that the provincial collection already has an example of, the rest are granted to Corite as a gift from the Crown. And that's when the ownership transfers from the province of Alberta to Corite.
Gotcha.
Once that happens, then we start prepping these, because we don't want to invest any time, energy, and money into something that doesn't belong to us.
Well, and that's really great because that way key specimens, valuable specimens to both science and stuff that the public would want to see and enjoy, they get to be in those hands.
You bet.
That is really, really cool.
And we are proud to be stewards of these fossils until they come to our ownership. And we're happy of the relationship that we have with the government, that we can work and we can do a job and excavate the way we do in Alberta, and still, the government understands that we're here to, we're a business. We're making jewelry, we're supplying jewelry, we're making fossils and providing them. They just want access to the really rare and unique stuff. And we would love for them to have that.
And that's just a great example of how, commercial and academia can work together to further and better the science, because you're doing the grunt work. You're opening the big hole. You're allowing access to that. And the most important pieces are going to science, going to where the public can appreciate them. And the pieces that, aren't worthy of scientific study get allowed to be out into the public for the public to enjoy if they choose to.
And part of the trade-off with that, for each specimen, once they've been inspected and deemed not scientifically important and released to Corite, we get what's called a general export permit from the federal government. Then we're able to ship these ammonites to collectors or museums in Australia or Hong Kong or New Zealand or wherever, and we don't have to jump through all the hoops to get this, because they've already been inspected.
Yeah.
They've already been deemed, that they're not scientifically important.
So you touched on something that I'd love for our audience to get a better understanding of, because, a lot of people don't understand how this all works. How do museums get the specimens that do? A lot of times museums have donors that will donate money to the museum. The museum will use that money to purchase fossils from guys like you.
Yep.
So museums all around the world, that's how they get their fossils, is through the purchase of them from guys like you.
And at Corite, we do have a special consideration for museums. If a museum is looking for a special piece, we'll try to help them out. We'll try to find that piece for them. Excuse me. And make sure they get it in the museums.
And you have specimens in museums all over the world.
All over the world. And the great thing about them coming to us is that they already know the specimen is numbered. They already know it's registered. They know that it's going to leave Canada with the proper export permits and all the paperwork. And then it's a piece that can be curated in a museum.
Man, this is so awesome what you guys are doing here. I mean, really, this is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, what a thing for the world to get than to get these literally the most beautiful and incredible fossils on the planet, out to the public where they can enjoy it, to museums where they can enjoy it, and to the scientific community where they can study it and further our understanding.
And we're doing it the right way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I told you guys are going to love this episode. And we're not done yet. We've got a lot more to show you guys. So what's next? We're going to go check out the...
Let's go to some cliffs. Let's see if we can find some ammonites ourselves.
Do you guys want to go ammonite hunting? Let's go. I know Isaac wants to go ammonite hunting.
Yeah.
We're going to go ammonite hunting, and we're going to take you guys with us and show you how this whole process works. All right, stay tuned. People first started, finding ammolite. What we're about to do is basically how they would do it. Before they would mine, they would surface hunt, correct?
You bet. Yeah.
So geologically, what's going on behind us? Is this basically a natural look of the pit that we were just in?
We're a little bit higher in the formation, because we're about 6 kilometers west of where the pit is. And this is the mighty St. Mary's River, but you can see all the cliffs around us are exposing ammonites all the way through the Bear Paw Formation.
Wow. So when people historically, before any mining, they would walk these banks and pick up the ammolite,
You bet.
and then, find people to trade them to or bring them to or whatever.
You bet. Yeah. You used to be able to walk down these banks and you couldn't go 4 steps without tripping over an ammonite.
Wow, that is
There were
so
so
cool.
many ammonites down here. But now with the value of ammolite, once people started learning that this is actually a commodity and a gemstone, these banks are picked clean.
And now, since this stuff is found on the surface, it was presumably found by by First Nations members, right?
You bet. Yep.
What's that story?
So the First Nations used to collect pieces of ammonites and ammolite and have them in their medicine bags. They used to bring good fortune, good luck for the hunt. There's actually baculite, which is a straight ammonite, and some of the weathered chambers of the baculites actually look like a buffalo.
Wow.
And they called those buffalo stone or inniskim is what they were called, and they would carry those around and they would bring good fortune for the hunts for them.
That's cool. So
Yeah.
that's fascinating that this is, something that First Nations have collected and used within their, tribal societies as a part of their rituals and ceremonies and everything.
Culture and everything.
That's
you bet.
awesome. That a fossil has been used for so long.
Yeah.
That's so cool. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go down, hit the river, walk around, and see what we can find. We're gonna take you with us. So here's where we're hunting. We're fossil hunting for ammolites. So over there on the other side of the river is the First Nations Reserve. So this side of the river is under private ownership. So this valley down here where the river cuts down into the Bear Paw Formation, we're basically walking the riverbanks that you see there, but on this side of the river and looking for the ammolite. But that's the St. Mary's River that cuts through, and this is the St. Mary's River Valley, and it is just a gorgeous, gorgeous bit of southern Alberta, Canada. All right, we're going to take you guys with us as we work along this hillside. And what we're doing is we're looking for nodules to find. It's a little sketchy walking here, but it's just part of it. But see, that's what we do, is you just hike along and you hope that you don't fall in the river and die as you look for these nodules that are sticking out. So let's get down here to where the river is, to Isaac and them, and see if there's something awesome worth checking out. I don't see anything along the way, and I don't want to die. I love my life. This is a hell of a way to make a living. I love it. What do you think? What do you see, Isaac? Anything cool? You can see those concretions up there. Those concretions up there. That's got ammonites in it, but they're already eroded away, so they don't exist anymore. Got some pieces that have weathered out and have totally fallen down, so we're gonna go check that out. What do you guys got down there?
It's like a cap.
Cap of an ammonite. Let's check it out.
Brachipod.
And you got a brachiopod? Let's see. Oh wow, look at that.
That again.
Oh man, that is gorgeous. That is absolutely gorgeous. Get some water on it. Let's see this color. Oh, wow. That is incredible. Man, that's cool. Is that your baculite? Oh, wow. Isaac, nice.
Check the back of it too.
That's cool, dude. Good find. That is epic cool. So this represents some of the other species that you can find here.
Exactly.
But that is a gorgeous, gorgeous piece right there. Now, is this something that you guys would collect and take with you, or is this a little too far gone? Color's not good enough.
It might be good for a hand specimen at
Yeah.
this point. Like if there was some of these thicker chunks
Yep.
kind of on the edge, it might be, if it was a little bit better quality, it might be good for gemstone.
Gotcha.
Especially if it's a little thicker. But it's a little washed out, as you can see. It's
Right.
a lower grade, but still a really nice find.
Oh gosh, yeah, still a beautiful specimen.
Still some green on it.
Is that one still got? Oh, Isaac! Whoa! Holy cow, dude! Nice find. Let's get this in the water.
Throw that in the water, that'll be
Oh,
I'll have to find more.
look at that, Isaac! Dude, good find. Man,
Here's the
that
whole
is
brachipod.
awesome. That is too cool.
Found the rest of the brachipod.
Did you find it? Let's have a look.
Found the whole thing actually.
Oh, wow! Holy cow! That is awesome! There's all kinds of fossils to be found here. All right, guys, this part of the episode is going to be a little down and dirty. We can't really work with tripods and stuff when we're out here, because I mean this is as real as it gets. So we're checking out this bank, walking along, seeing if what we can find. We found some great pieces so far. We're going to continue on. If we find anything more, we'll bring you guys back. So what do you got going on over here?
So I'm looking at some leftovers of a larger concretion that someone had found just above us here.
Okay.
And there's some interesting mineralization just on the inside. Chambers around the fossil. You can see lots of the brown calcite, most likely.
So that's what this is. This is brown calcite that was formed inside the chambers.
Yeah, and just around the center of the concretion. So even if there isn't a fossil within it,
yep,
sometimes you get some veins of this fluid that crystallizes on the inside of these.
I gotcha.
This one had a bit of both because you can see some leftover ammolite with some color.
Oh wow!
And this piece here, this is a nice one. This is like a nice little corner.
Oh yeah, you can see the corner of it right there.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna split that one open.
That's cool.
See if we can get a little bit of.
Let's see what it's got in there.
Yeah. So. There we go. Split that open.
Oh, dude, nice.
So 2 sides right there.
Yes, that is so cool. Oh my gosh, that is awesome. Wow. So see, I mean, that's really why you've just got to hammer at every rock, because you never know what's going to be inside. Let's get this a little wet and see what this looks like. A little water on it. Oh, wow. Look at that color. That is just gorgeous color. Wow. That is epic. That is epic.
Yep, straight from the source.
Straight from the source. So see, guys, this part of the episode is going to be a little down and dirty, so just hang in there. We're going to keep on going on down and see what else we can find. We're on the side of the bank here, and we're high up, and we've got a big nodule going on. Now, the nodules are what we're looking for the ammonites, right?
That's correct, yeah.
All right.
These giant stones here. Right in the center of it, you can see what formed the giant nodule. Here's the shell of an ammonite. You can see the 2 lines.
Okay,
here.
so here, between these 2 lines,
yep,
here and here, that's the ammonite.
Exactly.
Okay, and the concretion formed all the way around it.
Yes, so in this case, the shell itself was the nucleus for this entire concretion nodule.
Okay, but the color's not that great.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to the color?
Yeah, so this one has been sitting here for a while. You can see it's kind of jutting out of the bank a little bit, so it's seen a lot of erosion.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more rain and water coming through here. So that, with time, with all these fractures that you see in the rock, that will penetrate and destroy some of the color over time.
Okay, so it's what we're looking for, but nature has already done its job and has destroyed it.
You can see there's little remaining color, but
a little bit of color, but just not.
It's kind of, it's fairly washed out, so not the highest quality.
A little bit of color, but not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's still awesome, though.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that is still freaking really awesome.
So here we are on the banks of the St. Mary's River, and we got a few pieces here. This is an iniskim.
That's
known as a buffalo stone. So you can see here, you got the 4 legs, you got his hind legs, you got his front legs, and then you got his chin here. And it kind of looks like a buffalo. So these are the weathered baculite sections that the First Nations people would carry in their medicine bags to bring them good luck and good health.
Nice.
And Evan here has a really
nothing.
big chunk of an ammonite.
You can see the inner chamber
Oh wow.
structure there, and the
Beautiful
internal
suture
world.
lines inside.
Wow.
Yeah, there's the suture marks on the outside there.
Wow.
And
So that is a Placenticerus micai, which is one of the main species we find here. That baculite section would be a Baculites cuneatus.
Nice.
Yeah, gorgeous day on the St. Mary's River.
All right, so Johnny, so this is the concretions that they come out of, that right literally out of the hillside.
You bet. I saw the edge of this one sticking out just a little bit here. I thought I'd come up and open it up. So I came up, dug a hole above it. But if you're looking at the shale around it, you can see it's got a lot of red in it.
Yep.
That means this guy's been oxidized.
Okay.
So the oxygen's so corrosive on these ammonites, it takes all the nacre, all the color from them, and just eats it up, turns it to powder. You can see how red that is,
Yep.
and how flaky and crumbly that is.
See the red? So that's a bad sign. We don't want that.
So that guy has been exposed to oxygen, he's been exposed to air, everything. I thought I'd just uncover it just to show you how big these guys go. And this is probably a medium-sized one. We get a lot that are much bigger than this.
So let me ask you, so when you're mining in the mine, this is that harder clay that you're taking out. When you were saying it was really soft, almost like a condensed mud,
Yeah.
this is it getting unsoft.
Yes.
Or unhard, getting softer. And then these are the nodules that you're going after
Yeah.
within those layers.
You bet, yeah.
Okay.
But we're at the very top of the Bear Paw Formation here on this part of the St. Mary's River. Where we're mining is the very bottom of the Bear Paw Formation. And all the way through those layers, we're finding all kinds of ammonites, but the preservation is a little bit different in each one of those layers.
Okay, I got you.
So
So we're gonna see what's in here, or maybe we might get lucky, or
I don't think we're
You
going
don't
to
think
get
we're gonna
lucky.
get
It
lucky?
looks like it's too far gone.
okay.
You can see how it's just crumbling,
Yeah.
and we can just take it apart with our hands like this.
Right, I got
So
you.
there's absolutely nothing left.
Okay.
But I thought just for the sake of the video, I would uncover it and show you guys what these big ammonites look like and how big they actually got.
That's just so cool. Well, it gives you a really good understanding of what you guys are going for in the mine, because these are the nodules that you're hoping to find within the mine.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, you can just see how red that is.
Yeah.
It's
And
too
that's
far.
wild that oxygen gets in there and destroys the fossil.
Yeah, and this happened a lot before our lifetime.
Okay.
So this oxidation, it's not a few years, it's a few hundreds or thousands or even millions of years
Oh,
that would
wow.
destroy this fossil.
Gotcha.
But when you look at the layers here in the rock around it, you can see how red it is. When we were in the mine, that rock was black
Right.
or gray. There was no warmth in color there.
Right. Well, let's do this. Let's hop down off the side of this precipice, off the cliff, and let's show you guys what we found in our pack. We didn't find much, but we found some good color, and we'll check that out.
You bet.
Let's slide down. So we've got finished doing some field walking, and these are kind of the best of our finds. What do we got going on here, guys?
So we got lots of pieces of placenticerous ammonites here. We got some that have some nice reds, greens.
Wow, look at that color.
Yeah, you got a little bit of oxidation on some of these, but you can get in through them. Like, look at that.
That's killer. Let me show you guys. Look at that. That is just killer color. And so this is how Ammolite was originally found, both by First Nations and also by collectors, years later, in the 20th century and 21st century, right?
You bet. This one here has a lot of oxidation on the outside, but what we can just scrape through that oxidation. This will be a nice bright red underneath that guy once it's prepared.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then this shows the suture lines.
So that's a weathered piece. So this
Okay.
one's been weathered down all the way through. So it's gone through the nacre down underneath.
You can see that. That's all the sutures, basically the growth patterns of the ammonite, which is really cool. So is this pretty typical of a day's hunt?
A lot of times we'll find a whole one. A lot of
Okay.
times you can find a big red one. But today we weren't as lucky. We were kind of pressed for time here.
Yeah.
So we weren't able to find what we would have liked. But we found some great pieces with some good color.
Well, what's interesting is it shows what the process was like before you guys opened up the mine and before, you guys were really going after it, just walking the banks and picking this stuff up.
Yeah, this is how Corite started for sure, was picking pieces from the bank and cutting gemstones. And once we realized where we thought we had a concentration of them that weren't oxidized, we opened up a pit and we started mining for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we're getting to them before the elements get to them.
Yeah.
So you're not getting the white chalky ones like this that have been oxidized. You're getting really nice, fresh sort of ammolite.
Yeah, and see, that's a really good point, because until you guys came around, the only source for Ammolite was doing what we were doing, just walking the banks, and this is the kind of stuff you would get. To get something that's, as pristine and as incredible as the really thin pieces that you're getting, or as colorful as, some of the ones that are buried deep down, you're basically getting what Mother Nature left over before she destroyed it.
Yeah, you bet.
So it really makes what you guys do just that much more awesome when you get to see this is how it started
Yeah,
and
totally.
this is what you guys are doing now. So
Yeah.
hats off to y'all for the work that you guys do.
And you know, the bottom line is it's such beautiful country.
Yeah.
The St. Mary's River Valley and the basin is some of the most picturesque country in North America. So any day walking up and down the riverbanks is a great day.
For sure, for sure. Well, we got a lot more to check out on this trip. We are not finished. We're going to show you how this stuff is made, and we'll be right back. So, Johnny, once things are finished at the farmhouse where you process everything that comes from the mine, it comes to this facility here, correct?
Yep. So we're at the Corite main office and headquarters. Our production facilities here. We're in the city of Calgary. So we're about 2 hours north of the mine site, maybe 2.5 hours. So here everything comes in. It's all finally sorted, organized, and then the real work begins. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would it be possible if we could see the process that you just
you
described?
bet. Let's go.
Ah, this is behind the scenes. I know you guys are excited. All right, let's go check it out.
So here we are at our numbering and photography table.
Okay.
So here all the ammonites get a different number, a registration number. The ammonites are photographed, and then from here the application for the disposition is sent to the provincial government. So every ammonite gets a different number. For instance, this piece here is the second specimen in disposition group 1418.
Okay, and you've got it actually written on the fossil
You
itself.
bet. Yeah, and this one here is the fourth specimen in disposition group 1418.
Okay.
So as mentioned, these still belong to the province of Alberta at this point.
Okay.
We are just stewards of them. So we're going to get them registered, sent to the government, and then once we get our approval back, then we'll start working on it.
That's so cool. What's fascinating is that science and the government get an opportunity to, if there's something really cool and unique about this, they get the opportunity to study it.
Yes.
And to understand it and to further our knowledge. And then if they're like, we've got 1 million of these, we don't need one of these, then goes to you guys where you guys can prep it and then get it ready to share with the public, whether that's in jewelry form or whether that's in specimen form.
You bet.
And I think that's a huge win-win for everybody.
Yep.
So this is a cool part of the process of what you guys do.
And this is the system that the province of Alberta has put in place for Canadian ammonites.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So, all right. So after they're numbered, what's the next step?
Then we start work on them.
All right. Let's go check
back.
that. Yeah. Let's go check that out.
Here we got Ken working on one of the large ammonites here. So you can see he's using a micro jackhammer and he's chipping off all the dirt on the outside to expose the colors underneath.
So Ken, how long does this process take?
To do one this size, just to get all this rock and mineral and dirt and glue off of the specimen, I'm looking at about probably 24 to 32 hours.
You're
Yeah,
kidding.
you have to be very careful, because if you're too aggressive with the air tool, you'll damage the very valuable shell,
Now-
which is what gives it the color.
Right. Now this has a very low hardness, correct? It's not a very hard
No,
shell.
it's quite different from, like, ammonite to ammonite. It can be quite different. Like, some of them are quite hard, and the shell is very much attached to the rock beneath. But then there's other shells that, like, where it's quite soft and will fly off once you touch it just with a little bit of tool. So sometimes we'll have to stabilize the entire surface of the ammonite with some special glues before we can actually begin the process of cleaning. This one actually is pretty tough. Like, I can actually go in with the tool and chip away at this without removing any of the shell underneath.
I got you.
But that's the beauty about the mystery of the whole fossilization process, is why some, like, they're not all the same.
So
right?
what's your opinion? Why do you think you'll get some?
My
that
only
are
guess
good
is,
than
like,
others?
it's all about time and pressure, right? Like, so the deeper it is in the ground, maybe it's preserved better by Mother Nature, whereas the closer to the surface, maybe it's a little more delicate. I really don't know. I'm not
Yeah.
a scientist, so.
Well, but you've handled, I would guess to
Yeah,
say
I've been
tens,
doing
if
this
not
for-
hundreds of thousands. How long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been working for this business for 26 years, but I worked the first 5 or 6 years in the dinosaur department when we used to actually make dinosaurs, real dinosaurs,
Right.
for museums. And then some point I got switched over to the ammonite department. So I'd say I've been doing this for roughly 19 or 20 years, just working on this particular product. So
Let me ask you, so when you're going and working on it, how can you not scratch the fossil beneath? Is it just experience?
Experience.
Yeah.
You actually get a kind of a feeling, like when you've worked on this long enough, you actually can get a sense of how fragile or how strong it is just by even touching it. But you've got to do a lot of them before you really start. I mean, I always recommend anybody who does this in the beginning, just take your time, because there's a lot of things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what's cool is you get to be the very first person to see that color
like these
come
things
out. That is so cool.
These things have been in the ground for millions and millions of years.
Yeah.
And they're just seeing the light of day since these things went extinct, right?
Yeah.
Like, just a weird little showroom in Calgary, Alberta. Right?
So what's the neatest, as you've uncovered, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of ammolites over your career, what's the neatest thing that you've seen exposed?
Like scientifically interesting, I can't comment too much, but I've been amazed at the color, like the richness of the color,
Yeah.
the iridescence, and how like no two ammonites are perfectly alike. Like the topography of the surface of the ammonites, there's always some distortion, and once in a while you'll get an almost perfect shaped specimen that probably looked a lot like it did when it existed in the oceans.
Yeah.
But a lot of times through compression and fossilization, there's a lot of warping and which creates its own interesting sorts of shapes and sizes and stuff like that. But mostly, for me, I never get tired of the color. It's like I've got all the like if you got a really nice ammonite, you have all the colors of the rainbow. And Mother Nature made this. Like this was not the beauty was not created by mankind, like people or human beings. It was just through millions of years of preservation.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like you're passionate about your job and what you do.
I love it. I never get tired of doing this.
That's awesome.
I feel like the luckiest guy in the world.
Well, so you've got another 24 hours left to go on this
You
piece.
guys want to stick here and film through the whole
That's right. Yeah.
We'll-
I wish.
We'll put a nice little bed in the corner there.
There you go. Well, we'll let you get back to
shifts.
Hey, there you go. We'll let you get back to it. Thank
Okay,
you
no
very
problem.
much
It was
for
good
talking
to meet
us.
you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So this is the next step, the polishing step. Oh, wow. That's incredible. So here's what he's polishing on this one, correct?
Yeah. So once we've exposed all the colorful layers of the ammonite, we have to get in and start doing some polishing. So Ammer here is getting into all the nooks and crannies of this ammonite, polishing. A lot of that polishing has to be done by hand, but some can be used by machines. So he's going to get into all the nooks and crannies, polish. And the funny thing is, we had to apply all that glue at the mine to stabilize the fossil enough so it could make it all the way up to our production facility in Calgary. Now Ammer has to polish off all that glue we put on there.
Wow.
Because the glue can leave a little bit of a film on the outside.
Right. How long does it take to polish a piece like this?
Something like this can probably take about 5 to 10 hours per side.
You're kidding.
Of just polishing. There's a lot of area to go through. There's a lot of, as I say, nooks and crannies to get into. And it just all has to be done by hand.
So let me ask you this. I remember at the mine you were talking about how this is a step where you can lose that color
Yes.
because you're taking away layers. Can you explain that a little bit?
So Ammer's going to keep polishing. Now we only have a finite amount of color on the outside.
Right.
So if he goes through all that color, if it's a very thin area, he can lose it all.
So like the red that's on top, or the greens or the blues, if he were to keep going, there's no more blues, there's no more greens,
You
there's
bet.
no more.
So blue is the rarest color we find on Ammolite, and it's usually on the outside of the fossils. So a lot of times that blue is lost because we have a calcification on the outside, or we have exposure to oxygen, which can turn it white.
Okay.
But as he's polishing, he's actually going through the rainbow. So the blues will slowly turn to greens, the greens will turn to yellows, the yellows will turn to oranges, the oranges will turn to reds. It's like polishing through the rainbow.
Gotcha.
And the reds can turn to black. That means he's gone all the way through the colorful layers into the rock underneath. And we don't want that to happen.
No. Well, so it must take a lot of skill in
It
order to
does.
know how much to take off and what to leave, and that's...
That. But we can also play with that a little bit. We can manipulate the fossil. We can go a little deeper in one area to maybe expose a little bit more reds. We can go a little lighter in an area over here, as long as the colors are bright.
That's so you can kind of customize the colors. That's kind of like painting almost.
To a point. You know,
Yeah.
Mother Nature kind of tells us what we can and can't do. But
That-
we can play with it just a little bit.
That is so cool. So after this process, after the sanding is done, and it's wiped down and clean, what's the next part of the process?
The next part of the process will be crack filling. So we'll
Okay.
get into all the grooves and we'll fill all those areas. We'll make them smooth, get everything done, and then we'll put a clear acrylic lacquer on top.
Oh, okay. So then that's when the clear acrylic lacquer goes on. Can we see that process?
You bet.
Let's go check that out.
All right. So once the polishing is done and the ammonite's ready, we're on the final stage of our ammonite production. And this is where we apply the clear acrylic lacquer. We've got Corey here, our head of production for Corite, and maybe he can answer a few questions for you, Chase.
Yeah, Corey, what's going on here? What's going on? How does this whole process work?
Well, for the final step on the ammonite stones, we put a protective clear coat finish.
Okay.
And you can see the rough,
wow.
natural, polished piece. And the clear coat just enhances and preserves, protects the fossil.
So this is kind of like a permanent stabilization. So
Yeah.
you guys, here's what it looks like. Get it in the light. Here's what it looks like without any clear coat on it, and then with the clear coat on it, you can see. Is there another piece you can show us?
Yeah, I have a complete ammonite here.
That would be perfect.
There's,
Okay.
we
Yeah.
go.
Here we go. So here's what the ammonite looks like before it is clear coated. And this is what it looks like afterwards. That is such a huge difference. And so the whole purpose of this is to bring out the color and preserve and protect the
Preserve
specimen,
and protect,
correct?
for sure. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So this is another one of the key processes that are important
Right.
to the production of this fossil.
Yeah, it just keeps it a little, like say, a little more stable for the long term.
I gotcha.
As they go out into the world.
I
you know,
gotcha.
Keeps the color bright and clear. Although, the natural finish is nice and, as it is, but we just want to keep it going for another 10,000
10,000 years. That
That's
is
right.
so cool. All right.
Yeah, so we use a two-part clear coat, high-end automotive finish.
Okay.
And, we
Okay.
spray.
Just spray it on,
spray it on.
and then sit and let it dry, and you're good to go. Cool. Cool. Well, we'll let you get back to work.
All right.
How long does it usually take for this stuff to dry once you get it on?
We let it cure for about 48 hours.
Oh,
And
wow.
it takes about maybe 3 weeks for a full cure.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, we'll let you get back
All
to
right.
it. Thank
All
you
right.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate
You
it.
got it.
That is so cool. Look at this difference, guys. This is incredible. Come here. Here's what it looks like natural. All right, after the polishing process that we saw is finished. This is what it looks like with the coat on it. Isn't that absolutely incredible. That is so cool.
Now you can get this kind of shine just from polishing alone,
Okay.
but you lose that three-dimensionality in the fossil.
I gotcha.
So instead of having all the nooks and crannies which give the fossil character, it would be polished smooth.
Yeah.
So we feel the lacquer is the best of both worlds. It gives you that shine while maintaining the shape of the fossil.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Man, this is cool. Well, we'll let you go back up there. All right, what's the next step in our process?
That's it. We're
That's
ready to
it.
go for the
That's
fossils.
so cool. So that's the specimen side of it. Now you guys do jewelry as well.
Yeah.
Can you show us the jewelry process?
I can quickly show you what we're doing.
Let's do that.
go have
Let's
a
go
look.
check out some jewelry. So this room here that we've got, this is where you're working on turning everything to jewelry, correct?
Yes. So all the pieces here are polished, so they're very smooth.
Okay.
Now, ammolite is a fairly soft stone, so it's only about a 3.5 on the Mohs scale, whereas diamonds is 10, sapphire is 8. So what we do to make our jewelry more and our gemstones more wearable is we put a quartz cap on top.
Oh, okay.
So the quartz cap will increase the hardness to about a 7 or a 7.5. So it's something you can wear, bang around, live with. And with the quartz cap, we can do anything. So we can put a high dome, we can put a low dome, we can have facets on the quartz cap, whatever the jewelry design calls for.
And see, I think that's so fascinating that the pieces that aren't workable enough for specimens, you know, for people to collect the fossil, they are perfect for making jewelry out of.
Yeah.
And that's so cool that you can be wearing, well, it's like the one that you're wearing. You can be wearing jewelry from an ammonite that's millions of years old. That is just epic.
And it is an official gemstone. It was given official gemstone status back in 1981
Yeah.
by the Colored Stone Commission in France.
So now that we've seen this process, can we see what you got on display, the finished
bet.
stuff? So let's go check out the showroom and show you the very end of everything that we've been talking about.
Come on.
You're gonna like this.
Perfect.
Whoa, dude, these are awesome.
So these are some of the ammonites we prepare in the matrix. There's two ways we prepare Canadian ammonites. We prepare the two-sided freestanding ammonites.
Yeah.
And we also prepare some ammonites that are left in the Bear Paw Shale.
That is so cool. So this is the original rock that the ammonite would have came out
Yeah.
of.
But we have to take the ammonites out to polish them.
Okay.
So we actually place them back in a piece of rock.
That's so cool. I bet this. Do you guys get a lot of museums that are interested in these
Yeah,
pieces?
we sell a lot of pieces like this to museums. A lot of businesses have them for their boardrooms.
Yeah.
A lot of galleries. They're beautiful fossils.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing that something so bright and colorful comes out of rock that's so gray
I
and dull.
know. That's what's incredible. And also to get to see the actual rock that it comes out of, it keeps that part of the geologic history with it as well. And people can see what this kind of rock can produce.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like a thing, don't judge a book by its cover, because when this is covered up, all you see is this rock, but when you look inside, it's the most incredible thing on this planet.
Yeah.
So you've got these fossils prepped like this. Do you also have them prepped three-dimensionally?
Yeah, right in our showroom.
Okay,
Come on,
let's
have
go
a
look at these. Holy cow.
So-
what?
These are some examples of our two-sided ammonites.
What?
So you can see you've got them prepared with colors on both sides. And if you remember, I was saying that blues and purples are the rarest colors that we find. So to find an ammonite like this with this much blues and purples that's still really bright and vibrant is really quite rare.
God, this is incredible, man.
Yeah.
I can't believe the colors.
And you can see that both sides are very different.
So I see that you've got some that are compressed and some that are a little bit inflated. That's just the different pressure that was put on them?
Yeah, every ammonite is individual. From these bottom layers where we're finding these ones, most of the ammonites are going to be compressed. Although you're going to have some areas in some of them where they are still robust. You look at this guy, he's quite thin, and then he gets quite fat. And this is again that phenomenon of some of the chambers getting the sediments inside and maintaining their shape, whereas others are crushed flat all the way through.
This is incredible. So this is it. It's ready to go. It's ready to go to a private individual or to a museum.
You bet.
We're at the end, almost at the end of the line. This is so cool. So what else do you offer in terms of, do you have hand pieces, things like
We
that?
do, yeah. We sell hand specimens or smaller pieces, and some of those hand specimens can get quite large, as you can see here.
Wow.
You got a big, beautiful chunk of an ammonite. So that's prepared as a hand piece. We also have some larger pieces here, different sizes, shapes, colors, and then we also do some box specimens.
Now you've got a really unique specimen down here. What's going on with this one?
So around 10% of the ammonites we find have these perforations or circles on them. And there's two theories as to what they are. The first is that they're scars from a gastropod called a limpet. This would be similar to a barnacle on the side of a boat. So they would attach themselves to the ammonite and slowly they would have a tongue that was like sandpaper, and they would slowly make these holes. But I'm not a firm believer of that theory. My theory is that these are the bite marks left behind from a mosasaur.
Oh, I love that idea.
Now, mosasaurs are a really large marine reptile,
Yeah.
not a dinosaur, a marine reptile that used to live in the Bear-Paw Sea back then. And they used to hunt these guys. So if you're looking at these holes, you can see they line up. Like you look at this one here, they come in a line. And that's going to be because the mosasaur had teeth like a crocodile jaw, where all those teeth are going to line up. Where you see them on one side, you're going to see them on the other side as well, in those lines.
Oh.
And if you look really closely, you're able to see some compression fractures around these guys. So there's been a lot of force pressed into this guy. So what the mosasaurs would do is when they found a school of ammonites, they would actually come and probably bite as many as they could, poking holes in their shell. And before we talked about how these guys had different chambers and they use those chambers for buoyancy. If they were to poke holes in some of those chambers would just fill up with water and it'd be basically like limping an ammonite. You would hit it, kind of give it a Charlie horse or something like that. So it wouldn't be able to move around freely. It wouldn't have the kind of buoyancy that it normally has. And then the ammonite or then the mosasaur could come, chomp on the living chamber and eat all the soft tissue, and he's got his calamari.
That's so cool because I mean, really, the clam part doesn't make sense, but the mosasaur does because you've got bite marks on both sides, and that's a little too much of a pattern for it to be a clam shell grinding onto it. So I like your mosasaur theory, and that's just what's so cool is this is a fossil that can tell you about an event. Something that happened, part of the natural behavior of the animals that lived at that time. That is so cool.
So in our mind, we have found mosasaurs, we found elasmosaurs, and we found plesiosaurs. Some of those are on display at the Terrell Museum.
Right.
Others are in the back. And associated with some of those mosasaurs, we have found pieces of the ammonites. So we know that these guys were living together and probably, interacting with each other in some way.
This is the coolest fossil I've ever seen in my life. Look at this, guys. These are the bite marks here and here. Is that not incredible? And on the back side, you can see where it lines right up. That is awesome. All along there. That is so freaking cool. So you've got hand specimens, you've got finished specimens, you've got very special specimens like this.
Yeah.
So the pieces of let's say you get some an ammonite that's not whole, that isn't complete. You make jewelry out of it as well too.
Yeah, there's different grades of the pieces that we find.
Okay.
And some of the grades are suitable for cutting gemstones, whereas some are not.
Okay.
So, excuse me, most of the hand specimen material here is not going to be suitable for cutting gemstones. You can see it's kind of bumpy here. It isn't smooth. Maybe the colors aren't as bright, or there's too many of these fracture lines in it. So those wouldn't be suitable for cutting gemstones, but they're still beautiful.
Yeah.
They're still gorgeous pieces. So what we do is we kind of smooth them out, and then we polish them, and we treat them the same way we treat our ammonites, and we sell these as well.
Okay. Cool. Cool. So what's the process of making the jewelry? How does that go?
So the rough pieces are actually polished, and if you remember, we were talking about the different layers in the ammolite. So you're actually polishing them at a slight angle, so you're maximizing the color. So there's two kinds of stones that we make. We make triplets here, and then we have stabilized naturals here. Now, if you remember, I was talking about ammolite being fairly soft. So these are a softer stone. This is only about a 3.5 on the Mohs scale, whereas these ones have the quartz cap on top, and they're about a 7.5. Now, if we look at these at a profile, you can see the different layers. You can see the crystal on top, the dark gem layer, and then you have the backing, which is just the matrix for these ammonites. And if we look at a natural stone here, you can see that it's got a very different profile. It has a dark gem layer, which is at the top, and then you have the matrix underneath. So these stabilized natural stones here would only be suitable for pendants.
Okay.
You would never wear those as a ring. Or an earring, maybe a small one. Whereas these triplet stones are suitable for all facets of the jewelry. And with that quartz, as I mentioned, we can do anything. We can do a faceted top, or we can do a flat top, as you see here, or we can do a domed top. It all depends on what the jewelry designer has called for that specific design.
That is so cool. So, okay. So now that you've got them cut, what do the jewelry design, and you guys do all of your own designs?
Yeah, that's the thing about Korite jewelry. It's all handmade. All the stones are hand cut. Every stone is hand set in the jewelry. So it's really, the attention to detail that we have with our jewelry is absolutely amazing.
And this is some of your jewelry pieces over here.
Come on over and have a look.
These are so cool.
So here we're pairing ammolite with other stones. We have garnets and tourmalines in this line with the ammolite gemstone.
And you have a men's line too as well?
Yeah, this is the second one here is our Starlight collection. It's just a unique shaped stone. It's absolutely beautiful, inspired by the galaxies and the different shapes and colors that we see in the far galaxies. This is some of our men's line. And our men's line has been just performing amazingly. Everywhere we take it, it sells out so fast. So this is ammolite in titanium. And titanium's a metal we've never worked with before. But for men's jewelry, it's just simple, clean lines, nothing too fancy. And we're actually finding that about 50% of our sales of our men's line is actually going to women.
Wow.
So they love it too.
That's awesome.
But it's just simple and beautiful. That's what I like.
So cool. And this last line down here?
Yeah, these are some of the older, this is one of the older lines here, but I pulled it out because it just has amazing stones, and it can show the range of ammolite and all the different colors we have.
Well, what's so incredible is how much you can do with this fossil.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a fossil. You know, you can do specimen pieces with it. You can do jewelry with it. I mean, it's just incredible that you can enjoy the color of this fossil in so many different ways.
Yeah, it's a stone, or it's a rock that encompasses everything. It's a fossil, as we've seen. It's a gemstone, as you see here, and it's also a mineral specimen because it's a type of aragonite.
Yeah.
It's one of the fancy forms of aragonite. But the thing I love about it is that no two pieces are alike.
Yeah.
Every single stone is individual, so it's just like our fingerprints. You never have two pieces that are exactly the same.
That's awesome. So here, come with me, and I want to take you guys for just a second. Come here. So here's what we've got, guys. We've got a fossil right here. This comes out of the ground. This is what it looks like when it comes out of the ground naturally. Just this gray material. You can see part of the rock there. It's been flattened by compression. And when it's totally finished and done, this is what it looks like. Is that not incredible? I mean, this is such a cool thing that you guys are doing here, Johnny. This really, really is. This has been an incredible tour of this mining operation that you have, and we've learned so much about Ammolite. Johnny, thank you so much, man. We cannot thank you enough for not only bringing us along, but bringing all of our audience along with us as well. If people want to get a hold of you, if they want to get some of this Ammolite for themselves, how can they do that? How can they reach out and get a hold of you?
Our website, www.corite.com. And again, my name's John Isa, and my email address is john.isa@corite.com.
We will have all of that information here, or maybe up here. It'll be on your screen momentarily. We will have that information. And stay tuned to the credits, because we're going to have all the information that you're going to need in order to get a hold of Johnny to get you guys some of this Ammolite. Man, thank you so much for having us out, dude. We appreciate it. Remember, guys, history rocks. Isaac, what'd you catch? Caught a little snake? Easy. Poor guy. Room and arrowheads. Oh, sorry. Stop it.
Finish chewing your cracker.
We're hanging out with. Hold on. We'll do that again.
Action.
You ready?
Action.
Microphone on?
Yes.
Oh, hold on. Let's start.
Yeah, it's terrible. What the hell is...
Sorry. Whoever invented this stupid thing needs to go to prison. This thing is designed to break right there and breaks every time. We have to keep a screwdriver with us at all times in order to fix this. In about twice a shoot, we've got to fix this stupid thing. So if you're out there, manufacturer person who designed this stupid thing, karma, they're gonna get you. This is, that's it.